2:35 on a Monday. Dave Elswick Show, KARN. Princella Smith is here as well. Don't forget about her show on Saturdays at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
And you can hear her Unchained.
It's called Engage the
No
Nation.
muzzle.
And we go at it. Well, there's a little muzzle because my co-host is Kathy Dorsch.
Okay.
So she keeps a little muzzle. But
so
basically,
you come on my show, no muzzle.
Basically, there's no muzzle, though.
Yeah, there's no muzzle on this show. You know that for a fact.
No, I love it here.
Yeah, Dave Elswick Show. Bruce Westerman, the majority leader, has come on. He's in the house, and it's always a pleasure to have him here. And Bruce, you know what I like the most about you? You have solutions.
We try, Dave.
I mean, seriously, you have solutions. Everybody else wants to say, we got to keep the PO. If we don't keep the PO, oh, my God, the hospital's going to go out of business, and the businesses are going to go out of business. And you come in and you go, no, wait, no, they're not going to go business because, look, just think through this a little bit. We can do a few things, and everybody's fine.
Yeah, very rarely does the sky really fall, Dave. So we have to look for solutions, and, a lot of these problems are really just opportunities to come up with solutions, and that's what we were trying to do with the bill that I introduced today. And before we get into that, I do want to say that it's a privilege to be here with Princella and with you too, but the fact that she was here today, made it even
double,
better.
Man. That's like a double scoop of ice cream, ain't it?
Thanks.
In a waffle cone.
Representative
that,
Westerman. Man, you guys are laying it on
Put
thick
some
today.
sprinkles on it, maybe.
Hey, I was glad when I found out you were coming today.
Yeah, this is such a great guy. I'm really a Bruce Westerman supporter, big time, because he comes up, you know what? He comes up with solutions. He look, with the PO, you looked at that first, right?
Yeah,
you had some ideas about it, but it went off the tracks, and you jumped off the train before it wrecked.
Yeah, I couldn't support what was in the legislation for the PO. I think we had an opportunity to do some real
There's
Medicaid
wrong
reform.
With that.
Right. We should always look for solutions. We should try to work together and come up with viable solutions. But if a solution is not viable, we need to be able to recognize that and deal with it.
That's what I liked about Alan Kerr. I mean, Alan Kerr came on at the beginning of last session and said, this gives us an opportunity to completely revamp Medicaid in the state of Arkansas, and nobody took the advantage of doing it.
Yeah, we had a huge negotiating position with CMS, and I think that negotiating position is still out there. But the bill I introduced today was simply one to address the issue that the governor's brought up based on the Chamber of Commerce report that says that, if we don't approve the PO, that it's going to cost Arkansas businesses $38 million. Obviously, the president has already, by rule, not forced the employer mandate this year, so it's not an issue this year. It was a big issue when the PO was passed. I mean, that was one of the main arguing points about why we need to pass the PO. Otherwise, we're going to have these penalties on employers in Arkansas. It didn't happen because of the employer mandate got delayed, and we don't know if it'll be.
Just for 1 second? I remember when I don't know if it was David Sanders, somebody who helped write the PO, came on and said there was a trigger mechanism in the PO that the federal government could not charge businesses if they decided not to have health care for their employees. What happened? Was it because, as I said from the word get-go, if the government tells you it's got to be this way, it's going to be this way?
Yeah, I don't remember that part in the private option, but
it was talked about. I'm just saying they were talking about it.
Yeah. So where we are now is the governor saying if we don't approve the PO, and I think there's a real potential that it'll not get funded this session. The indications I get from the Senate is there's strong opposition to funding it in the Senate. So I think we need a backup plan to address the concerns that the governor has put out. Whether those concerns are real or not, we still can have a way to address those concerns. So we came up with this idea that if businesses are charged the employer mandate starting next year, then they would get a tax credit from the state of Arkansas. Now, if you look at that, it wouldn't even affect next year's budget or this year's budget that we're approving, because if an employer mandate comes back, which I hope it doesn't, But if it comes back, it would go into effect January 1st, 2015. By the time the penalties were assessed and paid and the tax credits applied for, it would likely be in past June and into the next fiscal year.
I think that is brilliant, first of all. I mean, I think kudos to you and your team and everybody who came. I mean, that is like exactly what you want your elected officials to do, because one of the biggest criticisms of Republicans, particularly conservative Republicans like you that have the reputation of being more conservative, is that you just scream no with no solution. This is a very practical, common sense solution. But I got to ask you this. What would be the pushback on this? Like, I know you've anticipated it.
I'll tell you what the first pushback is.
What would be the...
Where's the money going to come from?
Yeah, so I kind of like, do you have an answer ready for this? Like,
yeah, and the simple answer is it would have to come out of state general revenues, but there's different places it can come from. One of them is GIF and the governor's GIF fund. I don't know what's more critical than protecting jobs and business in Arkansas, and what could be more critical to our budget. So if our small businesses are penalized because of Obamacare, then I think we could find the money through priority of how we do GIF.
And again, not taxing people, right?
Say that again, Priscilla.
Not taxing.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be
taxing.
It wouldn't be a tax increase.
Yeah, no tax increase to pay for this. Yeah. I think it's brilliant. I mean, I really. Did you guys do a press thing with this? Did you get it out there and tell people what's going on?
It's out there. I got it.
Okay,
yeah, I basically
because
just filed the bill this morning.
I think it's phenomenal, and like I hope your colleagues join you on it.
So talk about this, because evidently a Democrat has already tabled it.
Yeah, I was shocked. I filed it right before we went into session. Then it was announced we were going to have a meeting of the Rules Committee. I went over to the Rules Committee, and they tabled the motion. It didn't have a fiscal impact statement done on it yet.
So where's all the love from the Democrats for small businesses in Arkansas?
Yeah, Senator Hester was filing a companion resolution in the Senate end. I knew that hadn't been filed yet, so I wasn't really expecting to go to the committee and present the bill this morning. But it's still there. It hasn't been done away with. It would just have to be taken from the table. And I think as the session moves forward, if the PO doesn't get funded and we want to try to protect small businesses, I think it's something that could be taken back up and given a fair shot in the committee. Okay,
so you've got a piece of legislation that, in essence, protects all the small businesses and even large businesses here in the state of Arkansas. How much money are we talking?
Well, if you use the number that the chamber put out through the study they had done, they said $38 million. Whether it's that much or not, we really don't know. Now, that's one reason we need to get an impact statement from DF&A, and I expect DF&A to come back and say it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. But the governor has already said it's a $38 million hit if we don't approve the PO and the employer mandate comes back. There's a lot of what ifs on whether or not this $38 million, supposed $38 million hit comes along.
And for people that don't know what DF&A is, Department of Finance and Administration. I'm just saying a lot of people don't know these like acronyms that we use.
Right.
So they're
the people that take your tax money.
Yeah.
The tax collector.
Yeah.
All right. So $38 million. How much does when you look at the House and you look at the Senate and you look at the governor, how much money are we talking about in general improvement funds? That's what GIF stands for, GIF.
Yeah, general improvement funds. Last year it was don't have the exact number, but it was in $100 million order of magnitude.
So we're talking a third of that to save every business here in the state.
Well, the ones that could be affected by the employer mandate.
Yeah,
right.
Sounds like to me that's a good use of those funds that are always there to be used for things like this.
They're supposed to be used for things like this.
That's what I'm just saying.
I fully expect the governor to have an issue with the bill, but if he's got a real issue with it, maybe he can take it up with Mark Pryor and get it changed in Washington D.C.
Oh my gosh!
Congressman Griffin actually proposed legislation in Congress when President Obama changed the rule on the employer mandate. He proposed a rule to make it legal to remove the employer mandate, and the president said he would veto it. So if the governor's got real problems with it, maybe he needs to take it up with congressional delegation.
All right, let's get a break in. 433-0092, 433-0092. If you got a question for the majority leader, here you go. Here's a solution.
There should be a lot of comments on this.
To a problem that's out there, and I think it's a great solution. 800-264-0092, free, toll-free number. Look forward to hearing from you as we continue here on the Dave Elswick Show with the majority leader, and that's Bruce Westerman here on KARN.
Tune in.
Shelley Russell's going to be here. We're going to talk about, did you guys in Bryant know that you got an election going on? Did you know that they're voting over there? A lot of people have no idea.
They just sneak those on you, don't they?
Yeah, those millage elections, you got to watch them. Special elections, and don't tell anybody.
They just slide it in.
That's another one we tried to change in the legislature last year.
Yeah, and they fought it off.
Yeah, I hope that the legislature in 2015 is able to change that one.
I hope so as well. That other voice you're hearing, that is the majority leader, Bruce Westerman. He just was telling us about a piece of legislation that he has introduced today that if it was passed and made law, if the punishments come down from on high, speaking of, Mount Obama.
From on high.
That, he'll throw his lightning bolts down and try to, have these penalties for businesses to pay if they don't give their employees health insurance, that this would protect them and let them write it off of their taxes.
Right, and this year he withheld the rule, even though it was probably against the legislation that was passed in Congress. It's a good thing, though, from the standpoint of businesses, that he didn't enforce the employer mandate this year. He instructed the Internal Revenue Service to not do that, but should he try to enforce that next year, then this bill would at least protect businesses in Arkansas that were affected by it.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
And it's again, something the governor is pushing as a reason why we should pass the PO, is because if we don't, it's going to affect these businesses in Arkansas that get hit by the employer mandate.
Okay, so give me your take on the PO being defunded and all of the people saying that, we'll fall into third world class status if it is defunded.
Yeah.
Third world?
Oh, yeah.
Are people using those words?
Well, I'm just going back and remembering a Republican governor who used those words about the food tax.
Okay. I think if it is defunded, we would at least be back to where we would have been had the private option not been passed in the first place. Now, there's a lot of things that have taken place in the implementation of the private option that might have to be unwound. There's no way to look at it and say it's going to be fair. It's not fair right now. We've got teachers who were asked to go on a bronze plan with an HSA while we're giving a silver plan away to people on the private option. So there's nothing fair about Obamacare in Arkansas right now, and people are going to say that if we take the funding away, it's not going to be fair. But again, the sky's not going to fall. We're not going back to a third world country, and the sun will come up the next morning. But there's concerns about the budget. The governor's talking about $89 million of hit to the budget. I think we can handle that with an alternative revenue stabilization act. I believe they're overstating the benefits of the private option and Obamacare in Arkansas, and they're understating a little bit the revenue forecast on the budget. So I think we've got both of those things working in our favor, but we can handle that simply with a revenue stabilization act where we put that amount of money either in a discretionary fund that can be spent when it comes in, or we move it over into category B into the budget, so that it's the same budget the governor's presented, which I will commend him this year. He only proposed a 2% increase, and it's the lowest one I think he's proposed yet. So it's not a huge increase, considering that's got the school funding in it, as well as the other areas where he's proposing an increase in the budget.
How about his statements that the tax cuts that you got to look really hard under a microscope to find them. But if these tax cuts that you all gave in the last legislative session, he says, well, those won't.
I think that was all a political game to help get the private option passed. I don't think Many people in the legislature actually believed that the tax cuts were tied to the private option. If you go back through the numbers on the private option, if we want to talk about fuzzy math with Common Core, we can talk about fuzzy math with the benefits they're projecting on the private option as well. It's got these multiplier effects of spending all this billions of free money from Washington, D.C., and we collect state tax money on the tax money that's being spent from D.C., and then you got multiplier effects. So it's not exactly straightforward the way they're calculating those benefits for the private option.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was only going to ask, it's more of a political question. Like, do you think that this helps to separate you from the other people that are also running for the race? And what I mean by that is, and it's no hit on anybody, because I don't have a dog in the fight, really. I'm not from the 4th District. But are you more so kind of saying, like, hey, look, I'm a legislator who has been here, I've done things, I've put real ideas forth to work on behalf of Arkansas? Like, do you think that this truly sort of helps to separate sort of kind of, I don't want to say men from the boys, but sort of,
I don't
you're
know
all
about
men,
that,
but
Priscilla, that's something the voters will have to determine. I simply see it as right now, I'm a legislator elected to represent the people of District 22, and I'm trying to do that job the best that I can. And people will make their own or develop their own conclusions about what that means.
I can tell you what I think it means, and this is no knock. I promise. Like, I think those other people are good people, but I was in Israel for a large, most of the time, the last session you guys had, and I was keeping up with it, and I'm telling you, I was genuinely impressed with your work and with your stance, and for example, your stance against the private option. I thought you did it so well. You were not pressured by people. People said all kind of whatever to you, but you stood by your conservative principles and guns. You did not let people bully you. You didn't care what other people thought. You just said, this is why we were elected, and I'm doing what we all campaigned on. And I just think you should get a certain amount of points for that from people. And I think people need to know that.
I think you should move to the 4th District.
I think you need to say it. You know what I mean? I think there's nothing wrong with saying, listen, I did what I campaigned on.
All right, we're out of time. And the majority leader here came in.
You can take that audio and replay it if you want.
And did a great job. Of explaining this new process that he's put, this new bill that he's put forth. Bruce, don't be a stranger when we're over on there on Tuesdays.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you over at the Capitol and anytime. And I always enjoy being on your show.
You look good today, Bruce. I wish everybody could see you, too.
Majority Leader, Bruce Westerman, here on the Dave Elswick Show. We'll get
radio
appearance
again
here in the near future. It's Dave Elswick Show, KARN, ABC News, KARN News. Up next, and Shelley Russell.
This is the voice of Arkansas. News Radio 102.9 FM KARN, Sheridan, a Cumulus station.